The rain poured down on the red dirt of planet Veltria, turning everything into thick, sticky mud. Jack stood under the open sky, arms crossed, watching the alien girl in front of him. Her name was Siraxa, a proud daughter of a once powerful alien clan. She wore torn silk robes and iron cuffs on her wrists, but her eyes still burned like fire. Even now, soaked and cold, she stood tall like a queen. Refusing to move, I said. "Walk," Jack ordered, his voice calm. Siraxa didn't even blink. "I do not follow orders from humans," she said, her voice sharp and proud. Jack raised an eyebrow but didn't respond right away. He looked around at the empty training field, just him and her, surrounded by nothing but mud, old crates and wind. This wasn't a prison, it was a test ground, and Siraxa was failing. "You don't have a choice," Jack said softly, walking over to his bag. He took off his jacket, laid down his weapon, and rolled up his sleeves. "If you won't walk, then you'll crawl," Siraxa laughed, cruel and loud. "Crawl? You think I'm an animal?" "No," Jack said, picking up 2 heavy water barrels. "But you act like one." She narrowed her eyes, ready to curse him again, but froze when he dropped the barrels at her feet. "Pick them up," he said. "Or..." "What?" she snapped, crossing her arms. "You'll beat me? Punish me like the others tried to." Jack didn't answer. He simply turned and began jogging up the hill with his own barrels, heavier than hers. No yelling, no threats, just action. Minutes passed. Siraxa stood still, her pride refusing to bend, but her eyes followed him as he went up, came down, and did it again. Sweat poured down his face, but he kept going. The wind howled. The rain kept falling, and the mud sucked at his boots. Finally, on his 5th round, Jack dropped the barrels again, looked at her and said, "You're weaker than I thought." That hurt more than a slap. Siraxa's fists clenched, and her pride screamed at her not to move. But something else, deep inside her, whispered louder. She grabbed the barrels and stumbled forward. The weight shocked her. She barely managed 3 steps before slipping and falling face first into the mud. Jack didn't laugh, didn't offer help. He just said, "Again." The next hour broke something inside her. Not her body, but her belief that she was above this. Above him, above effort. She crawled, carried, fell, cried out, but kept going, and Jack kept watching, silent as stone. When she finished, she dropped the barrels and collapsed beside them, panting, soaked, and shaking. "Are you done?" he asked, kneeling beside her. She couldn't speak, just nodded slowly. Jack stood and offered her a dry cloth and some water. She looked up, confused. "You're not going to punish me?" "I already did," he said. "You punished yourself with every choice you made today." Siraxa blinked, her pride now quiet. "Why are you doing this?" She whispered, "Why not just lock me up and break me like the others tried to?" Jack looked into her eyes. "Because I'm not here to break you," he said. "I'm here to rebuild you." That night, she sat silently by the fire, her muscles aching, her pride dented, but her mind was curious. Who was this human who didn't yell, didn't hit, but still made her obey? And why? Did a small part of her want to follow him tomorrow? Asterisk. The morning sun broke through the clouds like a quiet warning. Siraxa sat by the fire, her arms folded, her eyes half closed, pretending to rest, but in her mind, she was building a plan. She would not carry barrels today, not run hills, not fall in mud again. No, this time, she would win. Jack stood nearby, sharpening a small knife on a stone. He wasn't watching her, not really, but Siraxa had already learned something. He missed nothing. Still, she would try. "I think I twisted my ankle," she said suddenly, grabbing her leg. Jack looked up, blinked once, then stood. He walked over, crouched, and gently examined her foot. Siraxa didn't flinch, didn't move. For a moment, his touch was careful, almost kind. Then he said, "Your pulse just went up, your skin's not swollen, and your voice didn't sound like pain." He stood up and added, "Nice try." Siraxa's smirk vanished. He turned and walked away. tossing her a small canteen. Training starts in 10 minutes. She tried again an hour later, faking a cough so violent she nearly convinced herself. Jack handed her a scarf and said, "Cover your mouth. Don't spread your lies. No anger, no yelling, just calm rejection." By midday, Saraxa tried something different. She stood closer to him, let her robe slip slightly, her tone soft, her eyes sweet. "Wouldn't you rather spend time talking instead?" She whispered, "You've seen my body. You know what I am." Jack didn't move. He stared at her a long moment, then said, "Yes, I've seen your body, but I'm waiting to see your character." That sentence struck like a slap. Saraxa stepped back, stunned. He didn't want her beauty, her flirtation, her tricks. He wanted something real. They trained all afternoon. She climbed ropes, walked balance beams over pits, and did push-ups on sharp stones. Every time she slowed down or gave a lazy effort, Jack increased the count. She snarled, cursed, rolled her eyes, but she did them. At one point, she threw a wooden rod at him in frustration. It missed, but Jack walked over slowly, picked it up, and placed it back in her hands. "Again," he said. "Why don't you hit me?" She barked, "I've insulted you, disobeyed, attacked you. Why don't you break me like the others did?" Jack didn't smile, didn't blink. "Because I'm not like the others," he said simply. "And because that would make you right about humans." That night, Saraxa sat with a blanket wrapped tight around her. She stared at the fire, her thoughts heavy. No one had ever ignored her beauty before. No one had seen through her like this human had. He didn't try to win her over. He made her win herself back. She turned to him quietly. "You were a soldier?" she asked, voice low. Jack didn't answer right away. He stared into the flames, then nodded once. "I trained broken men," he said. "Men who'd seen too much, lost too much. They didn't need shouting. They needed direction. And now you train me the same way?" She asked, almost bitter. "I'm not human." "No," Jack replied. "But pain is pain. Fear is fear. And pride. Pride feels the same in every language." Saraxa went quiet. She didn't say thank you, didn't apologize, but she didn't try any more tricks the next day. She showed up on time, in full gear, and said nothing. Jack looked at her and nodded once. The silence between them said more than words could. Something was changing, not just in her but in both of them, and in the shadows of the trees, far beyond their camp. A hidden drone watched and recorded. Someone else was interested in Saraxa's transformation, and not for good reasons. The jungle was thick with morning mist, vines hung low, and strange alien birds screamed in the trees. Jack walked ahead, silent as always. Scanning the path behind him, Saraxa followed, her breathing steady, her eyes alert. They were deep into the training program now. This mission was simple: retrieve a locator beacon placed deep in the jungle. But Jack didn't explain why it mattered. Only that she must find it. Saraxa was stronger now. Faster too, her body had adapted. But her mind still clashed with itself. Some days she hated him. Other days she watched him like he held the universe's answers. Today, she just wanted to prove she didn't need him. An hour into the trees, Jack paused. "Footprints," he said quietly. "Stay close." Saraxa nodded, but didn't stay close. She slipped off to the right, her steps light, her body like a shadow between trees. She wanted to reach the beacon first, to show she didn't need his guidance, to win, once and for all. She moved quickly through the undergrowth, then spotted something shiny in the dirt, a metal disc. The beacon. A proud smile curled on her lips. She tapped it, but nothing happened. The light on the beacon was dead. Her smile faded. It was a decoy. That's when she felt it, eyes watching. She spun, hand on her blade, but saw nothing. Still, a cold chill ran down her spine. Suddenly, a voice echoed from a hidden speaker. "Still playing soldier, princess?" Saraxa froze. She knew that voice. It was Varnuk, one of her own people. A warlord from her planet. A traitor who once tried to sell her to slavers. "You should have stayed with your own kind." Varnuk hissed through the trees. Humans will break you in time. I just wanted to sell you. Syraxa's blood boiled. She screamed into the jungle. I'm not yours. Jack came running, his blade already in hand. What happened? But Syraxa was shaking with rage. Varnuk, she spat. He followed me. He set this up. Jack's eyes narrowed. Then, calmly, he said, we leave now. No, she barked. I'm done running. She turned and ran deeper into the trees before he could stop her. Jack cursed under his breath and chased after her. Syraxa ran blind, her rage leading the way. She crashed through leaves, over roots, following Varnuk's voice as it laughed from hidden speakers. But in her fury, she missed the warning signs, tripwires, metal glints in the ground. Suddenly, the earth gave way beneath her. She fell into a deep pit lined with stun rods and slippery stone. Her body hit hard. The wind knocked out of her. Above her, Varnuk's drone floated into view, recording her humiliation. Still a fighter, I see, his voice mocked. Even after your new master's training, Syraxa screamed up at the sky. He's not my master. Jack arrived moments later. He looked down at her in the pit, then at the drone. With a sharp throw, his blade struck the machine, knocking it from the air. He didn't smile, didn't scold, just stood silently as she writhed in the pit, covered in mud, pain in her eyes. You disobeyed again, he said, voice low, and it nearly got you killed. Syraxa's pride burned. I don't need you to save me. Jack dropped a long rope down the hole and sat at the edge. I'm not saving you, he replied. I'm waiting for you to climb. Minutes passed. She stared at the rope, then at him. Her arms ached, her pride screamed, but her heart knew the truth. She had acted like a wild animal, not a warrior. With shaking hands, she grabbed the rope and began to climb. Mud slipped under her feet, but she pushed harder, gritting her teeth. When she reached the top, Jack offered no hand, only a canteen. She drank without a word. He finally said, You're stronger than before, but strength without control is just danger. She didn't answer, but she didn't look away either. Something broke in her today, not her body, not her spirit, her stubbornness. As they walked back toward the camp, Jack said nothing more, but Syraxa stayed close this time, very close. Asterisk, the campfire burned low as night spread across the jungle. Crickets chirped, and strange glowing insects danced in the air. Syraxa sat silently on a log, arms wrapped around her knees, her face lit only by the dim orange light. She hadn't spoken much since Jack pulled her from that pit. Not out of anger but shame, real shame, not pride-wounded silence, the kind that made her look back at every word she yelled, every order she refused. Jack sat across from her, sharpening a tool. His calm, steady movements had become part of the background to her days now, but tonight, she was watching him differently. She cleared her throat. I shouldn't have run ahead, she said quietly. Jack didn't look up. I know, he replied. That was it. No lecture, no punishment. Just the truth. Syraxa felt something in her chest twist. This human didn't need to yell to break through her walls. He didn't use fear. He used silence, patience, and consistency. The next day, she woke before dawn. Without being told, she was already dressed and standing outside the tent. Jack stepped out, surprised to see her there first. You're early, he said. I'm ready, she replied, and for once she meant it. Their training was brutal that day, carrying stones, walking tight paths over deep ravines, swimming across cold rivers with gear strapped to their backs. Syraxa didn't complain. Once she fell, got up, and tried again. And Jack said nothing but nodded slightly each time she improved. When a younger trainee fell and cried out, Syraxa turned back. She knelt beside him, helped him adjust his straps, and showed him how to balance his weight. Jack saw that, and though his face stayed calm, something warm flickered in his eyes. That night, after dinner, Syraxa spoke again. I wasn't taught this way, she said. Where I come from, respect is taken with power, not earned through sweat. Jack looked at her for a long moment. Power without respect is fear, he said. Fear breaks quickly when the pain fades. Siraxa nodded slowly. I feared you once, she admitted. Not because you hurt me, but because you didn't. You made me face myself. The fire crackled between them. For a while there was silence. Then she asked softly, do you respect me now? Jack didn't answer quickly. He stared into the flames like he was reading some invisible story only he could see. Finally he said, I respect your progress. Not just the strength of your arms, but the control in your decisions. Respect isn't given, it's noticed. Siraxa took that in. No one had ever explained it like that before. Her family taught her to dominate, to crush opposition. Jack was teaching her to lead not with fear, but with example. Later that night, she stood alone under the stars. Her cuff still jingled softly when she moved. A reminder of her past, but she didn't see them as shame anymore. They were part of the path she walked now. In the dark, one of the new recruits came up to her, his eyes nervous. Can you show me that breathing trick again? He asked, the one for when we climb hills? Siraxa didn't hesitate. She smiled softly and nodded. Of course. From her place of defiance, she had grown into someone others now followed. Not because they were ordered, but because they trusted her, because she had changed back in. The tent, Jack scribbled notes in his worn notebook. He glanced outside once, saw Siraxa helping the recruit. Then closed the book and leaned back. She wasn't perfect, but she was becoming something better. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready for what came next. What Jack hadn't told her yet was that real missions were coming soon, and in the shadows of the stars, enemies were already watching, waiting to test if her discipline could survive the real world. The wind was too quiet that night. The jungle, usually alive with sounds of strange birds and buzzing insects, had gone still. Jack stood near the edge of the camp, his hand resting gently on the hilt of his blade. Something was wrong. He felt it in his bones. The way old soldiers do when danger is close, inside the camp. Siraxa was helping a new recruit adjust his gear. She laughed lightly, a sound once rare for her. The girl who once growled and glared now smiled and taught others, but Jack wasn't. Smiling, he walked past the tent slowly, checking every light, every shadow. Then, in the far tree line, a flicker of movement, just for a second. Too fast for an animal, too quiet for one of theirs. He turned back, his voice low but sharp. Everyone, gear up quietly. The trainees looked at him, confused. Siraxa froze. Reading the tension in his eyes, she nodded without a word and moved into action. Suddenly, a loud crack tore through the air. Then another. Flashes lit the sky as explosions shook the ground. Trees burst into flame, and the jungle came alive with chaos. Pirates, not local raiders, but well-armed, armored mercenaries. They'd been waiting, watching, and now they came to take what they believed was still theirs. Siraxa, Jack shouted. Defensive circle now. Recruits scrambled for weapons, shields, anything they could hold. Siraxa stood her ground. Blade drawn, eyes scanning the smoke. From the shadows came a tall figure, black armor, helmet shaped like a beast. Varnock. He had come for her himself. Jack stepped between them without hesitation. You're not touching her, he said flatly. Varnock laughed. A deep, cruel sound. She's property of my house, human. Step aside, and I might let you live, Siraxa shouted from behind. I am not your property. Varnock pointed his weapon toward her. She was mine the day I bought her blood. Before he could fire, Jack charged. His blade sliced through smoke and sparks, meeting Varnock's in a loud clash. The two clashed like titan steel ringing. Through the jungle, Siraxa didn't freeze. She turned to the others. Defend the injured. Keep the flames back. Follow the signals. No one questioned her. Not anymore. They moved because they believed in her. A burning tent collapsed beside them. Screams echoed from the edges of the camp. The trainees held back the attackers with whatever they had, training spears, stones, even fists. Then Siraxa saw it. A pirate aiming from the trees, targeting Jack's back. She didn't think. She didn't wait. She ran faster than ever before. shoved Jack aside just as the energy bolt fired. It struck her square in the side. Knocking her off her feet, she hit the ground hard. Pain exploding through her ribs, Jack spun, cutting down the shooter with one brutal strike, then dropped beside her, his hands already trying to stop the bleeding. Saraxa groaned, trying to sit up. "I told you. I don't need saving," she gasped, a smile twitching on her lips. "And yet here we are," Jack replied softly, wrapping a pressure bandage around her. "Why'd you do it?" he asked, voice low. She looked at him through pain-filled eyes. "Because I finally respect the orders." The fight raged for another hour, but with Jack's skill and Saraxa's leadership, the trainees held their ground. The pirates retreated, dragging their wounded into the jungle, leaving behind flames and ashes. By morning, the camp was half burnt, but still standing. And so was Saraxa, though she leaned heavily on a staff. The recruits gathered around her not as a prisoner, not as a former noble, but as a leader. She had taken a blast for the man who once trained her. Now they saw her differently. So did Jack. He didn't say it aloud, but the way he looked at her that morning, there was pride there. Not the kind you earn with bloodlines, the kind you earn with sacrifice. The camp was quiet again. But it was a different kind of quiet now. Smoke still drifted from the ruins of burned tents, but there was no panic, no fear, only rebuilding. Saraxa stood near the edge of the clearing, one hand pressed against her bandaged ribs. She watched. Two younger recruits struggled to set up a new shelter, the pole falling again and again. She didn't sigh, didn't shake her head. Instead, she walked over slowly and said, "Let me show you how to brace it with your foot." The boys looked up at her with wide eyes. She didn't notice, or maybe she did but said nothing. She simply knelt down and helped, not as a noble, not as someone above them, but as someone. Beside them, from across the clearing, Jack watched, arms crossed. For days now, Saraxa had done more than follow orders. She had taken charge, not by force, but by example. She taught others how to balance gear, how to fight, how to breathe. Through pain, and she did it without being asked. She didn't need chains anymore. She didn't need shouting. She had chosen this path now. Later that evening, Jack sat on a log, cleaning his knife as usual. Saraxa approached and sat beside him without a word. For a moment, neither spoke, only listened to the crackle of the fire. Then Saraxa finally said, "You were right." Jack raised an eyebrow slightly. "About what?" She stared into the flames. "About everything. Strength without control, pride without purpose. I used to think being feared meant being powerful. But I saw power during the attack, and it was calm, steady." Jack nodded. Slowly, but said nothing. She turned toward him, her voice softer. "I used to call you names," she admitted. "In my head, I figured." Jack replied with a slight smirk. Saraxa laughed lightly, then hesitated. Her smile faded into something more serious, more honest. "I've had trainers before," she said. "Beasts, brutes, tyrants. But you're not like them." "I never wanted to be," Jack answered. She paused, then looked him in the eye. For the first time, she said, "I understand what it means to learn, and for that, I want to call you something else now." Jack tilted his head slightly. "What's that?" She straightened her back, lowered her gaze respectfully. "Teacher." The word hung in the air like a fragile thing, not spoken in mockery, not forced from her lips. She meant it. Jack blinked, then nodded slowly. "Then you're no longer a student," he said. "You're a leader in training." That night, something changed between them, not romance, not silence, but trust, the kind that only comes after pain, after fire, after choices that could have gone the other way. In the following days, Jack gave Saraxa more responsibilities. She was now leading morning drills, correcting stances, and building team formations. The recruits followed her without hesitation. She wasn't just another trainee anymore, she was their guide. One night while walking the perimeter, Saraxa stopped near a large tree. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the old royal seal. She used to wear. It was dirty now, bent, useless, but she stared at it for a long time, Jack walked up beside her. Planning to wear that again? He asked. Saraxa smiled and dropped the seal into a small fire pit nearby. The flames took it quickly, turning metal to ash. No, she said quietly. That belonged to who I was. I'm not her anymore. Jack gave a rare smile. You're tougher than I expected, he said. Smarter too. She looked up at him and shrugged. Well, I had a good teacher. Behind the trees, unseen by either of them, another drone hovered silent and watching. But this one wasn't Varnuk's. This drone belonged to someone far worse. Someone who didn't want Saraxa trained, but destroyed. The next trial would not be a simple ambush or test of strength. Something darker was coming, and it would take everything they had: student, teacher, and all to survive what came next. The rain had returned, soft and steady. Droplets tapped on the tents, the leaves, and the metal barrels scattered around camp. But there was no training today, no laughter, no drills. Only tension, heavy and quiet, like the jungle itself was holding its breath. Jack stood outside the command tent, arms crossed, eyes on the sky. He had just received a message from the Central Alliance. A transport ship was coming, and it wasn't just bringing supplies. It was coming for Saraxa. Inside the tent, Saraxa sat alone. Her hands rested on her knees, her expression unreadable. She had heard the news. They said she could leave, be returned to her people, to a reformed council of nobles that now begged her to come back. Your status has been restored, they said. You've proven your worth. They offered her a title, a palace, and a seat among leaders. But not once did they ask if she was happy. Not once did they ask who she had become. Jack entered the tent without knocking. He stood there for a moment, then spoke softly. The ship will be here in 30 minutes, Saraxa nodded slowly. I know. He didn't tell her what to do. He never had. That was why she respected him. You don't belong in chains anymore, he said. You've earned the right to choose. She looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. And if I leave, what happens to this camp? Jack shrugged. New recruits will come, old ones will leave. The work continues. And you? She asked. Will you miss me? Jack didn't answer right away, but finally he said, I'll remember you, the fighter you became. Not the girl who arrived. Saraxa stood, walked past him, and out into the open. Rain soaked her instantly. But she didn't care. She looked around at the camp half rebuilt. Still healing, just like her. She saw recruits working together. Some using techniques she taught them. She saw a younger girl practicing balance drills she invented, and she saw Jack, the silent shadow behind it all. Steady as ever, the ship landed with a soft hum. Silver and clean. 2 armored officials stepped out, bows in hand. Lady Saraxa, one said. The council welcomes you home. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned to Jack. I need to ask, she said. Why did you train me so hard? Jack looked at her, rain dripping from his brow. Because I saw what you could be. Not a princess, not a slave, not a soldier. A leader. Her chest tightened. They had tried to control her, break her, save her, but only he had challenged her to become more. She turned to the officials. And if I refuse? The taller one hesitated. It's your right, he said. But it would be a waste. Saraxa walked slowly to the ramp, her feet silent in the wet dirt. Then she stopped, looked back at the camp, the smoke, the fire pits, the muddy trails. And finally at Jack. No, she said aloud. I'm staying. The officials exchanged looks, clearly shocked. You would give up wealth, comfort, power? One asked, I have something better, she said. I have purpose. The ship lifted off minutes later, rising into the gray clouds without her. Saraxa stood in the rain, not as a captive, not as a runaway, but as a woman who chose her own path. She turned to Jack. So, what now? Jack smirked slightly. Now? Now you're no longer a student. You're my partner, she smiled, wiping rain from her face. Then you'd better keep up. That night, as the fire burned bright and warm, Saraxa sat beside Jack not as someone who had been rescued, but as someone who had rebuilt herself. They spoke little, but when she placed her hand near his, not touching, just close, it said everything: respect, trust, and something more. Still unspoken, still growing, in the sky above, stars returned. Behind the clouds, and somewhere far away, a war still waited. But for now, Saraxa had peace, because for the first time in her life, her choice was her own.